Hello everyone. So as we all know that we are following a entire series in which we are working on how to write for premier journals. So far we have started with what are premier journals, why manuscript fail, and then we covered what are the expectations actually from us, which the journals or the premier journals look forward to. So we are covering the anatomy of the article section wise. We have covered so far all the topics, and that is title, abstract, introduction, theoretical background, or theoretical underpinning, and how to write a rigorous methodology whenever it comes to writing for the premier journals. So we have covered the till 5 points on the slide, and now onwards we will be focusing on, or in this presentation today we'll be focusing on how to clearly present the findings, and we will move forward following the process or the structure or the entire anatomy of the article. In this video today we are focusing on how to clearly present the findings. So first of all, we have to note that every single section speak to each other. Starting from introduction, everyone. So we all know that, we start writing with introduction and then we do the theoretical underpinning, what all theories are there and how we are building on those theories. How are this research objective, this research problem is building on those theories, and then how to write for methodology. So all these chapters speak to each other. Similarly, after doing the methodology, we do the analysis, data analysis, and then we present. And this is the place where we present the data findings or data analytics and the findings. Let's have a look. So we have covered so far in methodology, just to catch up, what should be the ideal approach. We talked about first the instrumentation, then data collection procedure, then we have discussed data analysis procedure, that how we are going to analyze the data. So far we are just theoretically covering what approach we have followed, what instrument we have used, what data collection procedure we have used, if it's in quantitative or qualitative, whatever, and how we are planning to collect the data. So that is the theoretical aspect. Let's say if I'm planning to analyze the data using structural equation modeling or using SLR, or using any of the technology. Let's say it's in combination of two methodologies, SLR or SEM, or meta-analysis or SEM, or let's say any combination, right? So we'll be talking about that in theory in this aspect. This we have covered so far. Let's go ahead what we cover in the findings. So we have to first understand findings section presents the main insights gained from the study. Okay, so as we have already highlighted, we focus on what are the findings of the study finally. It should also follow the research approach and methodology described earlier in the paper. So as we are talking about that, these chapters speak so much to each other, right? So if we will not connect what the methodology we are following with the findings, then we will lose the connect, right? And at any point of time, we don't afford to lose that connect. So there must be a clear consistency between what was promised in the methodology and what is actually reported in the findings, right? So let's say, and we'll be seeing some examples as well in the coming slides. So first of all, let's say if I promise that, okay, first I'll be doing meta-analysis and on second number I'll be doing structural equation modeling. Okay, so when I'm reporting the findings, I should follow and fulfill that promise that, okay, first I will report the SLR with the tables and step-by-step steps of the SLR, and then I will also highlight and produce the tables and the findings of structural equation modeling. It should never ever happen that we have promised something else in the methodology and the findings are missing on any of the single aspect. Next, the author should carefully follow the journal guidelines and the reporting standards. So now, sometimes it happens that we feel like how to report, the methodology and the findings. So usually there is a systematic way, like what process, what ways we follow in methodology. Exactly the same way we do it in findings, as I have just indicated, with the tables, figures, and what we have found out. Then, if you want to, as a researcher, let's say if you're confused about or at any point of time, it's always good and advisable to look at a few of the recent research papers of that journal. Okay, and which journal we are talking? The journal which you are targeting to submit in. It might be an A category, A star, B category, C category, or FT50, right? So just look at some few first journal guidelines and then a few of the research article. It will give you us an idea as a researcher what exactly the journal look forward to. Then the structure and the presentation should align with the expectations seen in recent research article published in the top tier journals, right? Now we will not repeat top tier and premier journals. What are these? We have already done a video on this. If you are still confused about what are premier journals and top tier journals, please go back and watch the video which we have uploaded related to what are premier journals. That is the first video of the series. All right. Then typically the author is expected to systematically report key results according to the type of study conducted. As I have just indicated, let's say we are following a Mazim approach or Demartel approach or interpretive structural modeling with Micmac approach, or let's say only structural equation modeling. So there must be the steps, right, involved, and we must have elaborated that in the methodology, right? We follow this approach in the methodology just to give you this approach. So in the same way, we present the findings here in the findings section, but with the tables, figures, graphs, what we are doing, step-by-step process, then with every single thing what we have found out. So the approach is, first, describe the characteristics of the sample population. We might have done partially in the methodology, but in detail, what is the sample population if involved? If it is a quantitative, qualitative review study, we should be adding one subsection to it. So basically, discussing the background of the sample. What was the characteristics of my primary respondents or secondary data? Just to give you some examples, like in primary data, I can say that, okay, I have targeted or I collected the data from the experts using this particular technology from the last 15 years. So what is my basic characteristics of collecting the primary data is the last 15 years. So they should be having the experience of 15 years, right? Probably I can also look forward to the people expertised in some particular technology, let's say AI. So they should be expert of AI and they should be working as an engineer in the field of AI. So that is a characteristic of my primary respondents. Or it can be human resources managers having more than 15 years of experience, right? So these are a few characteristics. Coming to the secondary data, again, what are the basic traits, basic characteristics which you are looking forward to looking in your secondary data? So if you are taking the data from already published source, so what was the filtering criteria? How you have filtered that criteria? So probably in secondary data, giving you some examples of review studies, what we do and how we download the data from Scopus, we run through Prisma or SLR or SPAR model, and then we further conduct the systematic review of literature, right? So these are in brief what approach we adopt. Then explain the key findings. So we have to explain. So first the characteristics of sample population and then explain the key findings. That is whether it was a conceptual, quantitative or qualitative or review study. We have to, sometimes we may add one only subsection and our purpose might get solved. But sometimes we need multiple subsections for key findings. For example, you might be explaining, let's say, hypothesis wise, that okay, in hypothesis 1, in aspect of hypothesis 1, we found out all these things and tables so and so represent that. Then hypothesis 2. So sometimes, let's say in conceptual study, we do it as per proposed concepts or as per proposed frameworks or models or taxonomies, or we also do it by theory wise, right? So remember, in findings, we have to systematically arrange the findings, right? And how we can do that? So that's what we are discussing over here. In context to conceptual studies, we do it via like maybe concept wise, maybe framework wise, maybe model wise. So it varies, but it should be systematic. In quantitative study, we might do it in the direction and significance of relationship sometimes hypothesis wise, these hypotheses are supported, these are not shown in so and so figures, so and so models, so and so tables. Sometimes we also show it like with the graphical models and tables that we have to include, so that we have already discussed. Coming to the qualitative studies, we may discuss it by themes, sub-themes, or excerpts. So it varies, like if we'll see different examples. In review studies, we may do it like what exactly we are doing, like science mapping or probably theme mapping or performance analysis of productivity and impact. So we have to arrange it according to what exact analysis we are doing, right? So there are a few good papers on like let's say for example bibliometric analysis. So there are a few prominent researchers in the field like Professor Satish from like previously he was in with IIM Nagpur. Now I feel he's with Sunway Business School, Malaysia. So and one more professor, Professor Dhondu, along with, I feel, Professor Weng Mak Lim, whose paper is also cited at the bottom. So these are a few renowned people who work with in the field of bibliometric analysis. And when you will read their papers, they will clearly be indicating various ways of performance analysis, science mapping. So what exactly we are doing, right? What exactly we are doing, and how we are putting it forward systematically. So this is the main aspect, apart from first the background and then explaining the key findings. Then explain whether the key findings meet standards and thresholds of the rigor or not. This is very, very important, that whatever we have promised in the methodology, in the methodological thresholds which we have promised, it should fulfill, whether it's quantitative, qualitative review, or it's a combined one. So we have to make sure, for example, for quantitative, checking the reliability and validity, in qualitative and review studies, how authentic and trustworthy they are. So we have to check and put forward and validate our own work. For example, in a few methodologies like interpretive structural modeling, we first establish a model, and with the Micmac analysis, we validate our own model in the methodology. So if you will see such methodologies wherein we do multi-criteria decision making, we validate our own model and we just check the robustness, right? So that's these are a few examples, which we should be take into consideration, and a few examples to just give you some insights. So let's remember, in findings, just to revise, we have to clearly indicate first the characteristics of the sample population. It can be of various types, like, what was the filtering criteria, on what basis we have selected, if it is on the basis of what context, country context, region context, industry context, right? And then explain the key findings. So it can be, it varies as per the type of the study we are doing. So as per the study, whether it's conceptual, quantitative, qualitative, or review, we have to check and present the findings accordingly. Then we have to present the key findings meeting the thresholds of the rigor. If the rigor in the methodology will be weak, there are very, very high chances that the paper will be rejected and will not go under review. And even if it will go under review, it'll come back. Okay, so let's be mindful of this. Now team, let's look at some of the examples. So I'll probably be opening a few good A category journals, and let's have a look how they are doing. Okay, so let's have a look at few journals. So let's have a look at Journal of Business Research. So let's have a look at this journal. No. Okay. Yes, so it is an A category journal, and as per the revised ABDC category, I hope you all know that in 2026 ABDC, and I'm making this video in February 2026. So ABDC's journal has recently been proposed, revised, and the final list will be out soon. Still, the Journal of Business Research is an A category journal. So just to share with you all, so what we are looking here, just a few recent articles. Okay, so we can have a look at how they have written the findings. So we can just have a look at any of the paper who is open access. So can we see open access papers show like this? So we can just directly go and view the PDFs. All right. So let's have a look. So let's note that they have done the hypothesis wise arrangement in the methodology. This we have already discussed, how usually the researchers do in the research articles. Methodology also, we have discussed that sometimes they do it like keyword wise, right? Or their conceptual model wise. So this we have covered. Let's have a look at the findings. So let's note this aspect, that after methodology, either they will name the chapter as findings or result. So these terms are used interchangeably sometimes in the research articles. To have a clarity on it, we can just look at the journals, how they are accepting. But this is not the standard for Journal of Business Research. I have seen that even the findings can be used, or you can also write the results section. So can we see how they are presenting results? So they are clearly indicating in the first section, they will be highlighting the descriptive statistics, correlations, confirmatory factor analysis, and post hoc common method bias demise. So they must have promised in the methodology. Let's have a look. So where is the methodology? Here. So in the methodology, they must have, yes, So they have clearly indicated here that what they are doing. So what is the sample and data? Then before that, they just justify the quantitative methodology which they are going to adopt here in this method. Then they elaborated sample and data. Then they shared what measures they are using, that is the instrumentation. We have covered it in our last video. And then they have mentioned the 3.3 section, and then they have mentioned the analytical strategy, that what all analysis they are going to do. So can we see, first they are indicating what all analysis they have done with the table. So can we see they have clarified table 1 is indicating all, okay, shows the descriptive statistics correlations of all the data, okay. Then they are showing the hypothesis testing, that exactly hypothesis wise. So they have divided the hypothesis. Can we see, like hypothesis 1 shows the relationship between individual trust and perceived isolation. Hypothesis 2 shows the relationship between perceived isolation and employee feeling of energy, and then this wise. So they have discussed hypothesis wise here, okay. So first the tests. So they have given first between the variables the descriptive statistics, and then the hypothesis wise explanation of every single thing. So can we see table 2? So table 2 must be here elaborating everything. And then figure 3. So let's have a look at figure 3, what figure 3 is indicating, figure 2 and figure 3. Where is figure 3? Yes. So here is, this is figure 3. Okay. So they must be explaining it first variable wise and then hypothesis wise. And then that's it. So that's it. After this, their discussion section started. So can we see how it is done, what they have promised, how systematically they have done. If you want to see some more examples, we can do that. Let's have a look at some more examples. So one more paper from Journal of Business Research, and please note, I'm just checking in and taking in the recent publications. So it is published just now in 2026 and open access articles. So there is no filtering criteria from my end. So again, the hypothesis, so they must be presenting the findings hypothesis wise. Let's have a look. So again, the similar paper, like similar structured paper, hypothesis. And let's go to, so these are again the hypothesis 4, then the methodology, we have covered it. Can we see it is following the same structure which we have discussed in the last video. Measures means instrumentation, data and sample, control variables, right? Absolutely fantastic. All right, so can we see here they are mentioning not findings but again empirical results, right? How they are arranging it. First, assessment of measurement model. So again, they are stating the descriptive statistics, testings, what all methods they have included. So they are again showing confirmatory factor analysis, the software which they have used, descriptive statistics and correlation. Exactly the same way which the previous paper which we have just now discussed has done. And then assessment of the structural modeling, testing of the hypothesis. Again, hypothesis was exactly the same structure. Can we see table 1, the descriptive statistics, and then this is the conceptual model, and this is table 2, which indicates the relationship and validation of the model. And that's it. This is the structure. So exactly the same structure. Can we see? So this is how the findings should be done. And just to note once again, the findings should be speaking to the methodology promise, right? So whatever promise we have done in the methodological section, for instance, sample and data collection, then the measures, and then control variables, and then what all tests we are going to do. Here the researcher has explained after that, and then the results comes in. So we promise first here what all things we are going to do as per the study, what suits to our study. We elaborate on inclusion and exclusion criteria of the methodology. This we have already discussed. Here we are focusing on the findings, how we write the findings of the research article, and sometimes they are also written as the results or empirical results. So I hope it has given you some ideas of regarding how we write the findings. Sometimes we get confused between what should be written in findings and what should be written in discussions, or what should be written in conclusion. So let's note that all these things are very, very different from each other. So let's do not get confused at the moment. Let's understand these findings, and I hope it has given you an idea. In the upcoming video, we'll be covering how to write the discussion part, which is the next part, because after the empirical or after the finding writing, the discussion section comes in, which is, let's have a look. Yeah, so discussion section comes in. So we'll be covering the discussion section in our next video. I hope it gives you an idea about the findings. Thank you so much, everyone.